After 5 years of marriage, Mark finally agreed to hold a makeup wedding. On that day, he didn't show up. He said there was something going on at the company and left me alone to face the guests. It wasn't until the wedding was over that the news of his secret meeting with his old flame appeared on the front page of the headlines. Suddenly, I felt that this marriage was meaningless. Mark knew clearly how much I had been looking forward to this wedding. When he left me alone at the wedding venue, I wasn't that angry because I knew he had always been a workaholic. I even took the initiative to ask him if he wanted to postpone the wedding for a few days and wait until he had dealt with the work matters first, but he refused. In the evening, I entertained the guests alone. Exhausted, I slumped on the sofa to take a short break. I was casually browsing Weibo. All of a sudden, I saw the news on the front page of the headlines that he and his old flame were holding hands. I was stunned on the spot. At that moment, I just wanted to call Mark to question him, but he was even more self-righteous than I was. She's just my client. Is it wrong for me to have a meal with my client? When did you become so unreasonable? Before I could reply, he hung up the phone angrily. I was a bit at a loss. I don't know how long it took before I came to my senses. I stood up and opened the door of the reception hall. The guests had obviously also seen the headlines and were all ready to laugh at me. But instead of crying or making a fuss, I just smiled generously at them. Sorry. Just consider today as my treat for everyone to have a meal. I'll return the wedding gifts one by one. After seeing off the last guest, I received a message from Mark. Is it over on your side? If not, I'll come over to help you entertain the guests. It was as if nothing had happened. This wedding was like a one-man show of mine. Well, actually that was the truth. He had always been like this, making one promise after another but never fulfilling any of them for me. After a quarrel, it was always like this, giving a sweet after a slap. In the past, I would definitely get to the bottom of it. I would keep quarreling with him until I got an answer. But today, there was a voice in my mind telling me, forget it. So I sent a text message, it's over. You don't need to come. I didn't open to read the messages he sent later. They were all just the same old stuff. Just like our marriage, the quarrels were always about the same topics. It was very late after the wedding. The car keys were with Mark. Considering the safety issue, I decided to call Mark and ask him to pick me up. After the call was connected, a sweet female voice came from the other end. Brother Mark is taking a shower now. What's the matter? The other party's provocation was blatant, but I knew that if it hadn't been for Mark's acquiescence, she wouldn't have dared to do this at all. I smiled self-deprecatingly and hung up the phone without saying a word. Originally, I planned to take a taxi, but after waiting for half an hour, no driver accepted the order. Finally, I decided to walk home by myself. There were very few people on the street. When I turned into a small alley, suddenly I felt a sneaky figure behind me. When I quickened my pace, he also quickened his pace. When I slowed down, he also slowed down. I was probably being followed. I was so scared that in a panic, I stepped on a banana peel and fell straight to the ground with a scream of, "Ah! What's the matter, sister? Are you okay?" A group of male college students passing by were attracted by my scream and walked into the alley to help me up. I took a quick glance and found that the figure that had been following me had disappeared. When I got home and opened the door, it was dark and empty inside. As expected, Mark didn't come back that night. After taking a quick shower, I didn't sleep well in the middle of the night and was awakened by a nightmare. Coincidentally, the screen of my mobile phone lit up. I unlocked it and saw a message from my best friend who was abroad. According to the time difference calculation, it was almost daytime there. Melody, I'm planning to return to China to start a business. Do you want to come with me? Short videos are very popular recently. I'm planning to seize this opportunity and gather a team to shoot one. However, there is a drawback. If we start shooting, it may be a fully enclosed shooting, which will last about 2 months. I was a bit stunned. Since I graduated from university and married Mark, because of his words, "I'll take care of the outside while you take care of the inside," I had never gone out to work again but wholeheartedly managed our family. Can I do it? My best friend replied to my message quickly, "Don't worry, Melody. Your major in university was drama and film, and you were the top student in the major every year. I believe you can definitely do it." In fact, in the 5 years since I married Mark, I had been out of touch with society for a long time. Sometimes Mark would also point at those successful career women on TV and imply to me, either explicitly or implicitly, "Look at them. This is the right role model for women." Every time like this, I could only keep silent because I still had to ask him for my living expenses for the next month. So the olive branch thrown to me by my best friend after she returned to China was an excellent opportunity for me. It was time to pick up and relearn the forgotten knowledge. Early the next morning, I opened my university textbooks and studied them again. Fortunately, my previous foundation was very solid, so it wasn't as difficult as I had imagined to study them again. In this way, every day I would study after waking up, and after studying, I would go out for a walk, do some exercise or practice yoga. Unexpectedly, time passed quite quickly. Before I knew it, a week had passed. One day, I studied until midnight. Suddenly, Mark sent me a text message, "Honey, I love you." The pen slipped from my hand, and my fingertips trembled suddenly. A sentence came to my mind, "Love shown in the early morning is just the guilt of cheating." I was only sad for a second. Then I opened the book and continued to study as if nothing had happened. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, when I was sleeping in a daze and turned over, I suddenly felt that a large part of the bed beside me sank. It was Mark who had come back. I turned over and continued to sleep with my back to him. Unexpectedly, he came close, hugged me from behind, and his hands started to touch me in a provocative way. When he was about to put his hand under my skirt, a faint rose fragrance wafted into my nose. It was the fragrance of his old flame Giselle. I suddenly woke up and pushed him away. There was a trace of confusion and doubt in his eyes. I picked up another quilt and pillow from the wardrobe and explained to him, "I'm having my period. It's inconvenient during this period. I'd better go to the guest room next door to sleep." There was a flash of displeasure in Mark's eyes, but there was indeed nothing wrong with what I said. He had no choice but to nod and let me leave with the quilt. Early the next morning, when I woke up and saw Mark busy in the kitchen, I thought I was dreaming. "Melody, you can go to the bathroom to wash up and then come out to have breakfast." I looked at the breakfast on the table but didn't say anything and just sat down obediently. I really didn't come to the wedding that day because something suddenly came up at the company. I know. I picked up a steamed bun and took a bite. Then my brows furrowed tightly. And about the thing with Giselle, I can explain it. It was just a fake pose. I didn't hold hands with her at all. The paparazzi maliciously photoshopped the picture. It's okay. I can understand. As soon as I finished saying this, I couldn't help it anymore and rushed directly to the trash can in the kitchen and spat out all the steamed bun in my mouth. "What do you mean? If you have any dissatisfaction with me, you can just say it directly. There's no need to act like this and let others guess what you're thinking." Mark also threw the bowls and chopsticks, kicked the chair away, picked up the suit jacket beside him and was about to leave. "I won't talk to you now. I'm going to work." "I didn't mean that." Mark stopped in his tracks. I slowly got up and explained to him, "You may have forgotten that I've never liked meat buns, but I didn't expect that I still vomited it out." He was stunned for a few seconds on the spot, his lips tightly pursed. After a while, he said, "Sorry, I remembered it wrong." I turned around and silently poured the remaining steamed buns into the trash can. It was never me who liked meat buns, but his old flame Giselle. In the evening, the assistant brought me a movie ticket. "The president said he's sorry about what happened today, so he wants to invite you to watch a movie with him after he gets off work tonight." I looked at the movie ticket in my hand. It was a movie that I had been longing to watch for a long time. Back then, Mark always used all kinds of excuses like being busy with work to decline going to the movies with me. I thought he really didn't have time. But now, I took a look at the half-finished script on the table and shook my head. "Never mind. I won't watch it. I still have things to do at hand. You can ask him to deal with this movie ticket by himself. After seeing the assistant off, I continued to focus on the work in my hand. 2 hours later, I took a break and browsed Moments. A post on Mark's Moments caught my attention. The content was, "It's rare to have some free time at work to watch a movie. Classics are indeed classics. No matter how many times you watch them, you never get tired of them." The attached picture was a woman's hand holding popcorn. Under the dim light, the diamond ring on that hand was shining so brightly that it was particularly dazzling. I knew that those hands belonged to Giselle. And there was a big selling point of that ring, which was that a man could only customize one in his lifetime. No wonder, no matter how much I pleaded with Mark before, he refused to buy me a diamond ring of this brand. It turned out that he had already bought one for someone else. After getting off the plane, my best friend's first thing was to call me. After answering the call, I put down my work and rushed to pick her up. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, and we had a great chat. Before we knew it, it was already late at night. "By the way, how's your relationship with Mark? Is everything okay now?" My best friend asked. I was bored a few days ago and saw the gossip about Mark and Giselle on Weibo. I was stunned for a moment and then drank up the wine in my glass in one gulp. "It's okay. Actually, it's within my expectation that they would get together. There's nothing to be sad about." Even though I said so, my best friend still saw the sadness in my eyes. She hesitated a bit. "There are some things that I don't know if I should tell you or not. But seeing that you two have come to this point now, I think it's better to let you know." "Go ahead." "It's okay. Actually, do you know why I was always against you being with Mark in the first place? Because on the day before you got together, I happened to see Mark confessing his love to Giselle. At that time, Giselle despised Mark for being a poor guy, so she firmly rejected his confession. I thought that since Giselle treated him like that, he had given up. So I thought he was sincere when he was with you later. I didn't expect that the first thing he did after getting rich was to go to his old flame Giselle. This really proves the saying that men go bad when they get rich." After my best friend finished speaking, I pretended to be calm on the surface, but my fingertips turning white as I held the wine glass still betrayed my thoughts. I thought I was strong enough, but after hearing these things with my own ears, it felt like my heart had been torn open, bleeding, and the pain was so intense that it was hard to breathe. I put down the glass, and my phone rang. It was Mark calling. "Where are you? Why haven't you come home so late?" There was a hint of reproach in his tone. After all, in the past, it was always me who waited for him until late at night. This was the first time that I hadn't come home after midnight, which was quite unusual. "I'm with Renee. She just returned to China, and I'm hosting a welcome party for her." "What's the matter? Do you want to come and have a drink with her?" "No, you two can drink. You should be able to take a taxi back by yourself later. Don't drink too much." Mark obviously relaxed when he heard that it was Renee and hung up the phone without saying another word. When I opened the door of the bedroom, I was startled. In the darkness, I couldn't see the expression on Mark's face clearly. He was sitting quietly on the sofa. The moment he saw me open the door, he put down the pillow in his hand, took a long stride, and walked up to me, then pulled me into his arms. "Why did you drink so much wine?" I was a bit drunk, but still conscious. I pushed him away. I was happy today, so I drank a bit more. "I'm going to take a shower." After saying that, I turned around, picked up the clothes for changing, and walked towards the bathroom. However, a long and slender hand stopped me directly. "What's going on with you recently?" Mark frowned. I heard my voice sounding neither cold nor warm. "If you're referring to the matter with Giselle, I've said that I don't mind. I believe every word you've told me. That's not what I'm talking about." "Then what is it?" I raised my face and rarely looked him in the eye. "Didn't you always quarrel with me before, saying that you wanted to go to the movies with me? Why didn't you go this time? And every time I came home late in the past, you would always wait for me at home. Why didn't you even make a phone call today?" I suddenly froze on the spot while holding the clean clothes. What Mark didn't know was that I had already watched this movie countless times, and I could recite the plot backwards. What mattered was never which movie to watch but who to watch it with. As for the phone call thing, it reminded me of a long time ago. At that time, Mark's work had just started to make progress, and he always had social engagements until very late. Because I was worried about him, I often waited for him until midnight and called him to ask when he would come back. But once, he got impatient directly. "Are you annoying? Don't you have your own things to do? Did I ask you to wait for me? If you're sleepy, just go to sleep by yourself. There's no need to do things that only move yourself and disgust others." Since then, I would rather wait for him alone until late at night than make a phone call to him again. Maybe he himself had even forgotten about it. But later, his phone rang in the middle of the night too. It was Giselle calling. Instead of getting angry, he quietly lifted the quilt from the bed and went to the windowsill to answer the call. The call lasted for more than an hour. I'm a light sleeper, and when I was woken up, it seemed that he was telling some jokes that made Giselle laugh out loud on the phone. I asked him to keep his voice down, but he said righteously, "Giselle has been afraid of thunder since she was a child. Besides, she sleeps alone. She really needs someone to comfort her now. You're both girls. Can't you be a bit more empathetic?" That night, I was the one who couldn't fall asleep. "Melody, what's going on with you these days?" Mark's fist swung towards me. I subconsciously closed my eyes. When I opened them, there was a small dent on the wall beside me. I hadn't seen Mark lose his temper like this for a long time. In front of me, he had always been calm and composed, never showing any agitation. Today's situation was really unexpected. I even wondered if I had really gone too far. But the image of Giselle flashed through my mind. I suppressed the urge to vomit in my heart, put down the clothes for changing, and went to the cabinet beside to get some medicine to apply on Mark's hand. "Don't think too much. I've been really busy these days, so I didn't take your feelings into account for a while. It's very late. I'll go take a shower later. You should also go to bed early." Only then did Mark's expression soften a lot. "Go ahead. After taking a shower, you can still move back to the master bedroom and sleep with me." "Okay." I put on a perfect smile. After applying the medicine, I turned around and left. In the bathroom, I washed the hand that had just touched Mark dozens of times before I stopped. Taking a deep breath, it wasn't time to show my cards yet. It was already 1 o'clock in the morning after taking a shower. Mark had fallen asleep. I quietly picked up the quilt and prepared to take it back to the guest bedroom, hoping to have a good sleep. The next day was the weekend. Mark rarely worked at home instead of going out to work. "I bought breakfast for you. See if it suits your taste this time." He placed the breakfast he bought on the table one by one. He had just finished exercising and then picked up his casual clothes and went back to the bedroom to change. This time, he bought wontons, seafood porridge, soy milk and other light breakfasts, which were quite in line with my usual taste. I scooped up a wonton and tasted it. It was really good this time. I picked up the seafood porridge again and took a sip. The strong and pungent fishy smell rushed into my nose and mouth. Feeling nauseous, I rushed to the kitchen and started vomiting. "What's wrong? Doesn't this suit your taste again?" "It shouldn't be. I clearly bought it according to your taste this time." Hearing the noise, Mark rushed out of the room. As if he suddenly remembered something, he stared at me. "Melody, are you pregnant?" Before he could finish his words, the ringtone of the mobile phone on the dining table rang. The familiar ringtone indicated that it was Giselle calling. "What's the matter? How could she suddenly have a fever? Is it serious? Has she gone to see a doctor? Do I have to go there right now?" "Okay, I got it. Tell her to lie down and rest and have breakfast. I'll rush there now." After hanging up the phone, he picked up the coat beside the table, put it on, and hurriedly rushed towards the door. As if he suddenly remembered something, he turned back when he reached the entrance. There's something going on at the company. I need to go back and deal with it now. If you're not feeling well, just lie down and have a good rest at home. If there's anything inconvenient to do, ask Aunt Chen to do it." I nodded at him with a proper smile and an impeccable expression. Okay. I got it. Don't worry and go ahead. People were coming and going in the hospital, all in a hurry, and didn't notice me sitting in the corner at all. Until the computer called my number, patient number 25, please enter consultation room number 8. I picked up my bag beside me and entered the consultation room. The doctor took a look at my test report results. The fetus has been developing for 4 weeks and is developing well. Congratulations. There was a boom in my head, and my mind went blank for an instant. I didn't say a word, until the doctor continued to ask, "Are you married? Do you have any gynecological diseases? Have you had an abortion before?" Seeing that I didn't answer, the doctor explained, Doctor, can this child be aborted?" I interrupted him before he could finish his words. "Yes, it can be. But if you're married, you still need to ask for your husband's and your family's opinions. Don't you want to make a phone call to ask them?" I raised my head and looked at the doctor. "Can't I sign it by myself?" The doctor was stunned for a moment and still wanted to say something to me. But seeing the determined expression on my face, he opened the drawer and took out a piece of paper. "This is the waiver, which proves that you are willing to give up the fetus." After hesitating for a few seconds, I picked up the pen in my hand and signed my name in the signature column without hesitation. This child came at the wrong time. When I was lying on the cold operating table, I felt the life in my belly gradually slipping away. A tear slowly flowed from the corner of my eye. I hoped that in the next life, he could be reincarnated into a better situation and wouldn't meet a mother as irresponsible as me again. Right after the operation, my best friend called me. She said there were still some small details in the script. After finalizing them with me, we could almost start to join the crew and start filming. After getting off the operating table, I went to talk about the script with my best friend without saying a word. It was noon. My best friend and I were going to have lunch in the restaurant there. After having lunch, we planned to go shopping in the mall. On a whim, we went to a jewelry store, but unexpectedly saw Giselle and Mark there. Giselle was smiling and holding Mark's arm. There was no sign of being sick at all. The reason we recognized each other was that both of us took a fancy to a cute Hello Kitty plush toy at the same time. "Brother Mark, I want this one." The girl pouted playfully and pointed at the last plush toy in my hand. When I turned around and the eyes of the three of us met, we all fell silent. Mark was the first to react. He pulled his hand out of Giselle's hand, looking like a child who had done something wrong. "Melody, why are you here?" "Well, Renee and I just had lunch and are out shopping now." "What's the matter?" I smiled gently and gracefully at Mark, as if Giselle beside him didn't exist at all. "Why did you suddenly think of coming to these places to shop?" Mark's face suddenly became very ugly. He seemed a bit surprised and hurt. "Tomorrow night is the 5th anniversary of our marriage. I'm here to buy you a present." I suddenly realized, so that's it. "You haven't forgotten, have you?" There was a strong sense of disappointment in Mark's tone. I smiled awkwardly. To be honest, if he hadn't reminded me, I would have completely forgotten about this matter. However, his disappointment was understandable. Because on every previous wedding anniversary, I would always start preparing 1 month in advance. I was in charge of everything from booking the restaurant in advance, arranging the scene, to taking commemorative photos. And all he needed to do was to show up briefly on that day and then look at me, who was full of joy, with a look of disgust and say, "What's there to celebrate? It's the same every year. How boring." Thinking of this, I felt very uncomfortable in my heart. I looked up and smiled at him. "Didn't you say these anniversaries were boring before? Let's not celebrate it this year." Mark's body swayed a little. I saw his lips trembling. "We should celebrate it." "Who said we wouldn't? I'll wait for you at home tomorrow. I won't go anywhere." "Mark." Giselle raised her voice, seeming dissatisfied that she was being left aside. "I said that Hello Kitty is so cute. I want it." Mark looked at me and then at Giselle, frowning. "Don't you already have one at home? Why do you still want it? I told you that you're such a straight guy, but you just don't admit it." Giselle gave Mark an affectionate glance. "Don't you see? This one is bigger and cuter than the one I have at home." You know I've been a Hello Kitty fan since I was a kid. Seeing that Giselle insisted on getting the toy in my hand, Mark was in a dilemma. He said with difficulty, "Well, could you?" Before I could answer, my best friend beside me finally couldn't bear it anymore. "Giselle, don't you have any shame? Why do you always want to snatch everything from my best friend? It's okay if you snatched her man. Anyway, he's just good looking but useless. Now you even want to snatch someone else's toy? Why? Do you think other people's things are always better? If others eat shit, why don't you go and eat shit too?" Hearing this series of scoldings, Giselle's tears started falling down like rain, as if she had suffered great injustice. Mark looked at the three of us, hesitant to speak. Finally, I took the initiative to hand the doll to Giselle. "Here you are. I don't want this toy anymore." I picked up my bag and walked past the two of them, but didn't notice that my hospital diagnosis record had fallen to the ground. It happened to be picked up by Mark. I talked about the script with my best friend until late at night. When I was almost home, it happened to start raining heavily outside. As soon as I opened the door at home, I saw a person sitting on the sofa in the darkness. Mark was holding a cigarette and sitting in the corner. He said in a hoarse voice, "Why? How could you be so cruel? Why didn't you tell me that you were pregnant and just aborted the child directly?" I froze at the door and didn't enter for a long time. After a long silence, "There's no reason. I just didn't want it suddenly." He took a long stride towards me, grabbed my arm and pressed me down on the sofa. "How could you be so cruel? That was our child, a living life." Mark pinched my chin and said through gritted teeth, "Do you think I don't know? Actually, your attitude towards me these days was all because of Giselle. But I'd rather you quarreled with me loudly and lost your temper at me than be in this half-dead state now. If you're dissatisfied with me, you can hit me, you can scold me. Why must it be like this? I hate you. I hate you. I hate you." I felt the wind of his fist brushing past my ear. The sofa beside me sank a large part, and Mark's breath was right on my face. I was just about to push him away in disgust when I felt a warm touch on my neck. Mark, who had never shed a single tear in front of me before, was actually crying. I sighed, gently pushed him away, straightened my clothes and sat on the sofa. "Mark, let's have a good talk." Mark dejectedly grabbed his hair, and his eyes were terribly red. I turned around, took out a stack of photos from the drawer and threw them directly at Mark. "Thanks to you that night, I was able to take these explosive pictures." Mark was stunned for a moment and then picked up those photos nervously. The photos were taken on the night when Mark suddenly sent me a message saying he loved me. My female intuition made me immediately contact the paparazzi to follow and take pictures of Mark. As a result, pictures of Mark and Giselle holding hands and entering the hotel were captured. The two of them were very intimate in their words and deeds, and they even couldn't help kissing passionately in the elevator. Giselle stood on tiptoe in the elevator, and Mark lowered his head, cupping Giselle's head. It was obvious that he was aroused, and then the two of them went into the room. I don't need to describe the following scenes in detail, do I? I said coldly. I didn't. Mark, however, shook his head palely and said to me, "I admit that I was really aroused that night and almost went all the way with Giselle. But at the last moment, I thought of you, so I held back. I swear that I've never betrayed you." 16. I gave a light laugh. "So what if nothing happened? Is there a difference between a darker shade of being cuckolded and a lighter one? You clearly know that for so many years, Giselle has been like a thorn in my heart. You also know that I've always minded her existence, but you've never considered my feelings and kept getting in touch with her again and again. Mark, I'm not stupid. If you two like each other, I can choose to leave the house empty-handed and give you to her. But that's still not a reason for you to directly abort the child." He suddenly broke down and said, "After all, it was a living life. Because I don't love you anymore," I said softly. The crying stopped abruptly. Mark was stunned on the spot. The air was so quiet that you could even hear a pin drop. I don't know how long it had passed when there was a knock, knock, knock on the door. "Mark, are you at home? It's thundering and raining again today. I'm scared." Giselle's voice came from outside the door. Mark froze on the spot and didn't move for a long time. Seeing this, I stood up and was about to open the door, but was pulled back by a hand. His eyes were bloodshot. "Don't open the door." I pulled his hand away. "Didn't you say that Giselle is a girl with a timid personality and is most afraid of thunder? I'm afraid you'll be worried if we leave her outside alone." I smiled and pulled Mark's hand away, then opened the door. "Where's Mark?" Giselle was obviously disappointed when she opened the door and saw it was me. Her eyes kept looking inside the house until she saw Mark. She didn't even look at me and excitedly pushed me aside and threw herself into Mark's arms. "What's wrong with you? You didn't even answer my call today. You don't know how scared I was when I was alone at home today." The girl muttered and pretended to be angry as she patted Mark's shoulder, but Mark pushed her hard and she fell to the ground. "Get away." Giselle was caught off guard by his push and bumped into the corner of the table. The pain made her burst into tears. "What's wrong with you today? Are you so angry for no reason? I finally summoned up the courage to come to your house to find you, but you treated me like this. I'll never be nice to you again." Mark, however, sneered. "Who asked you to come to me? If you're really scared, you can ask your assistant. How dare you come out alone in the rain to find me?" Giselle's crying stopped. She was stunned for a second and looked at Mark in disbelief. "You said it yourself that you'd always be there for me. But is that a reason for you to ignore my wife's feelings and directly rush into my house and throw yourself into my arms? Giselle, you've crossed the line." Mark looked at Giselle coldly and didn't make any move to help her up. Instead, I helped Giselle up. I smiled and shook my head at Giselle. "It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm about to divorce Mark. You're free to do whatever you want with him." Giselle's face changed, and a resentful expression flashed across her face. She pushed me away forcefully. "Who wants your fake kindness? You must be secretly laughing at me inside when you see me being treated like this. Watch your behavior, Giselle." 18. Mark wanted to come and help me up, but I refused. "Tell her if there's anything between us two." Giselle asked in panic. "What do you mean? Don't you admit all the moments we had together? You were by my side when I was sick. You called me to coax me to sleep when it was thundering. And you gave me the ring that you can only buy once in your life. What are these all about then?" I was being crazy for a moment. "I've thought it through. Indeed, when I heard the news that you had returned to China, my heart was a bit shaken, but after getting along with you for so many days, I've realized that from the beginning to the end, there's only Melody in my heart." "You bastard." A clear palm print appeared on Mark's face. He didn't get angry at all after being slapped. "Take this slap as what I owed you. Now I've paid you back, and we're even. Mark, I'll never forgive you in my life." After saying that, Giselle covered her mouth and rushed into the rain and disappeared in the rain curtain. 19. Since that day, there had been very little communication between Mark and me. Because I was about to join the film crew, I proposed a divorce to him, but he refused to agree no matter what. I had never seen him cry so many times in front of me in my life. "Melody, it's really my fault in these years. I've been ignoring your feelings all the time. I won't be absent from your life every day from now on, okay? You like Hello Kitty, right? I'll buy it for you. I'll buy as many as you want. For the movie you wanted to watch before, as long as you still want to watch it, I'll accompany you to watch it at any time, okay?" Later, he even held my hand and said to me with tears in his eyes, "I know you're completely disappointed in me because of that wedding before. Let's hold another make-up wedding, okay?" However, none of these could make me look at him again. On the contrary, I was getting busier and busier with my work. But before the closed shooting in the film crew, I didn't forget to file a divorce lawsuit in the court. Anyway, I was determined to divorce Mark. 2 months passed in a flash. After the film crew finished shooting, I also successfully got the divorce certificate with Mark. With these two happy events combined, I drank a lot at the celebration banquet that night. Just as I walked out of the restaurant with my colleagues, I saw Mark driving a car and parking it at the entrance of the restaurant. Compared with his previous high spirits, he looked much haggard now. "Melody," Seeing me, he quickly got out of his car and even showed a flattering smile. Wow, this man is so handsome. Is he your boyfriend? A colleague from the film crew looked at Mark with starry eyes. I smiled slightly. No, he's my ex-husband. The colleague immediately put away the starry eyes. Sorry, I made a mistake. This guy is just SOSO and even has a scruffy beard. Since you two have something to talk about, I'll leave first. I know I'm wrong. Now I want to pursue you again. I know you may not agree to me now, but no matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you. As soon as he saw me, he excitedly held my hand, but I pushed him away. I said coldly, be realistic. We're over and there's no possibility anymore. No. I won't agree. I firmly won't agree. I can't live without you. Mark burst into tears again when he saw me. He wanted to come and hug me, but I dodged him too. A tall and young man in a clean white shirt was walking over not far away. When I saw him, my eyes immediately curved with a smile, and I waved to him. He immediately ran towards me like a puppy and obediently called out, "Sister." I smiled at Mark and said, I haven't introduced him to you yet. This is my boyfriend.